Nobody in Ashford liked talking about Maple Street. It wasn't the oldest road in town, and it wasn't the darkest. But at the very end of it, past the leaning mailboxes and the houses with peeling white paint, stood a playground that no one used anymore. Still, every night at exactly 4:49 a.m., it played. The swings creaked, the merry-go-round spun, and sometimes, if the wind carried just right, you could hear children laughing. But there were no children in Ashford. Not anymore. When Officer Daniel Reyes transferred to the small town of Ashford, Ohio, he expected quiet nights and simple calls. After 10 years in Chicago, this place felt like retirement. 3 weeks in, he started waking up at 4:49 a.m. Every night. He didn't know why at first. No alarms, no sirens, just a sudden, violent awareness, as if someone had whispered his name directly into his ear. The first time it happened, he brushed it off. The second time, he checked his phone. 4:49 a.m. The third time, he heard it. A metallic squeal, slow, rhythmic, like rusted chains dragging against steel. Daniel sat upright in bed, heart thudding. His apartment window faced Maple Street. And there, at the very end of the road, beyond the thin fog that never seemed to lift from that patch of ground, he saw the swings moving. Back and forth, no wind, no children, just the playground, playing. Ashford had once been known for its elementary school, Maple Grove. Built in 1953, it sat directly beside the playground. In 1987, a fire broke out during a winter assembly. The official report blamed faulty wiring. 32 children died. The town never recovered. The school was demolished within a year. The playground remained. Nobody ever explained why. Daniel brought it up casually at the diner the next morning. Wind catches those swings, the waitress muttered, not meeting his eyes. There wasn't any wind. She paused mid-pour. Coffee overflowed onto the saucer. You're not from here, she said softly. Best not to start noticing things. That was the first time someone warned him. It wouldn't be the last. On the fourth night, Daniel didn't wait to wake up naturally. At 4:45 a.m., he stood by his window, watching. The fog rolled in thicker than usual, curling low against the asphalt like something alive. The streetlights flickered once, twice. 4:49, the swings jerked forward violently. Not gently swaying, yanked, as if invisible hands had thrown their full weight into motion. The merry-go-round began turning, slow at first, then faster, metal groaning in protest. And then, a child's voice, "Push me higher." Daniel froze. It didn't echo, it didn't drift, it sounded close. Inside his apartment, he spun around. Nothing. The room was empty, but when he turned back to the window, the playground was closer. He blinked. It was impossible. The playground sat at least half a mile away. But now it looked nearer. The swings larger, the slide clearer, like the street had shortened. Daniel grabbed his keys. He didn't know why. Maybe curiosity, maybe pride, maybe the stubborn instinct of a cop who refused to believe in ghost stories. By 4:52 a.m., he was walking down Maple Street. The air grew colder with each step. Not normal cold, dead cold, the kind that seeps through bone. The houses he passed were dark, curtains drawn tight, as if the entire town was pretending to sleep through something they'd long ago accepted. The closer he got, the quieter everything became. No insects, no wind, no distant highway hum, just the creaking metal, and laughter, soft at first, then layered, dozens of voices, children, laughing, The playground lights flicked on as he approached. There were no visible power lines connected to them. They hadn't worked in decades. Daniel stepped onto the mulch. The laughter stopped instantly, the swings slowed, the merry-go-round came to a gentle halt. Silence. Police, he called out. If someone's here, this isn't funny. A single swing moved, just one. Forward, backward, forward, backward. Daniel stepped closer. The seat was small, old-fashioned rubber, cracked with age. The chains were rusted, but polished in places, like they'd been handled recently. Or constantly. He reached out. The moment his fingers brushed the chain, the temperature dropped so violently his breath crystallized in the air. The playground lights exploded, darkness swallowed everything, and then, they appeared. Children, faint at first, transparent shapes forming around the equipment. A boy on the merry-go-round. 2 girls at the top of the slide. A group gathered near the jungle gym. Their clothes were outdated, 1980s winter jackets. Knit caps. Sneakers. Their faces were pale, burned, not charred, but wrong, like wax left too close to flame. They weren't playing, they were staring at him. All of them, at once. "Why didn't you come?" a little girl asked, her voice layered over itself, like multiple recordings playing out of sync. Daniel's throat tightened. I wasn't here. "You promised," another voice whispered. "I don't even know you." The boy on the merry-go-round tilted his head unnaturally far to one side. "You will." The ground beneath Daniel's boots shifted. Not sinking, breathing. The mulch rose and fell like lungs. He stumbled back. The children began moving, slowly at first, then jerking, twitching, limbs bending at wrong angles as they stepped toward him. "You left us," they chanted. The chant grew louder, faster. "You left us, you left us, you left us, you left us." Daniel turned to run, but Maple Street was gone. Behind him stood only darkness. The playground had stretched outward, swallowing the road. The fog thickened, forming walls. He was trapped. The children surrounded him. Up close, he could see more detail. Blistered skin, melted eyelashes, eyes clouded white, except for one, a little girl with perfectly clear eyes. Blue, unburned. She stepped forward while the others froze. "You can still fix it," she said calmly. "Fix what?" Daniel demanded, backing away. "The door." "What door?" She pointed toward where the school once stood. There was nothing there but open field. But now, a doorway stood alone in the fog. A wooden classroom door, paint blistered, number 3 burned into its surface. It creaked open slightly. Black smoke leaked from the crack. "You have to open it," she whispered. "Why me?" Her clear eyes locked onto his. "Because you wake up at 4:49. The other children began screaming. Not words, just raw, distorted shrieks. Daniel clutched his ears. The door slammed shut. Everything went silent. The children vanished. The playground returned to normal. Fog lifted. Maple Street reappeared behind him. His cruiser sat at the curb, engine still running. Daniel stumbled backward, heart racing. It was 4:58 a.m. 9 minutes had passed, but his watch cracked. His hands burned, blisters forming across his palms where he touched the swing chain. He hadn't imagined it. He couldn't have. As he turned to leave, he noticed something carved into the wooden support beam of the jungle gym. Fresh, deep, 4 numbers, 449, and beneath it, a name, Daniel. He staggered back toward his car. The town lights flickered on as dawn approached. Windows opened, people stepped outside, normal morning routines, as if nothing had happened. As if something didn't happen every single day at 4:49 a.m. Daniel looked back one last time. The playground stood still, empty, harmless, but on the top of the slide, the blue-eyed girl sat watching him. She raised one hand slowly, and pointed, not at the school field, not at the door, at him. Then she mouthed 2 words. "Tomorrow again, dash dash dash." Back in his apartment, Daniel searched town archives. Maple Grove Elementary fire, December 12, 1987. Cause. Electrical failure. Survivors. 1. He froze. He hadn't seen that in earlier reports. 1 survivor. Name. Emily Harper. Age. 8. Condition. Unharmed. Daniel stared at the attached photograph. A young girl with bright blue eyes. Unburned. Perfectly clear. The same eyes that had stared at him in the fog. But the file didn't end there. Status. Missing. Disappeared 2 days after the fire. Presumed dead. Daniel's clock ticked loudly in the silence. 4:12 a.m. 37 minutes until 4:49. He didn't feel tired anymore. He felt watched. Slowly, deliberately, he turned toward his bedroom door. It was slightly open. He never left it open. From the darkness inside his room, a child's voice whispered softly, "Officer Reyes." The door creaked wider on its own. And from the blackness, something began to step out. To be continued. The playground still played. Part 2. The bedroom light wouldn't turn on. Daniel hit the switch twice. 3 times. Nothing. The hallway behind him remained lit, but inside the room, the darkness was thick, unnatural. Not the absence of light, but something heavier. Watching. "Officer Reyes." The voice came again. Closer. Younger. But not innocent. Daniel's training kicked in. He reached for his service weapon, breath steadying despite the tremor in his hands. "I need you to step into the light," he said firmly. Silence. Then, a small hand gripped the edge of the bedroom door from the inside. Burned skin, peeling, fingers slightly fused together. It tightened around the wood, leaving blackened smears. Daniel's pulse pounded in his ears. A second hand appeared, Then the outline of a child stepped forward into the faint spill of hallway light. It was a boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old. His winter jacket was melted into his skin. His eyes were hollow sockets of ash. But his mouth stretched too wide. "You didn't open the door," the boy whispered. Daniel swallowed. "What door?" "The classroom." Behind the boy, the darkness shifted. More shapes. More children. Crowding. Breathing. "You have to let us out," another voice layered over his. "I don't understand what you want," Daniel said, backing up slowly into the hallway. The boy tilted his head unnaturally. "You promised." The word echoed again. Promised. The same word from the playground. The air temperature plummeted. Frost began creeping across the hallway walls. Daniel's breath fogged. His phone buzzed suddenly in his pocket. The sound shattered the silence. The children froze. All of them turned their heads toward the vibration. Daniel fumbled it out. Unknown number. 4:49 a.m. flashed on the screen. He looked up at the clock. 4:49. But that was impossible. He had checked minutes ago. He hadn't moved. He hadn't lost time. The call answered itself. Static. Then a little girl's voice. Clear, calm. Blue-eyed. "You're running out of chances." The bedroom children began screaming. Not loud at first, but rising. Pitch bending. Sound distorting until it felt like glass slicing into his skull. Daniel dropped the phone. The hallway lights exploded in a shower of sparks. Total darkness. He fired one shot into the ceiling instinctively. The muzzle flash illuminated the hallway for a split second. The children were inches from him. Mouths open impossibly wide, teeth blackened, arms reaching. Then darkness again. And silence. Dash dash dash. Daniel woke up on his living room floor. Sunlight poured through the windows. His gun lay beside him. Unfired. No bullet hole in the ceiling. No frost on the walls. No burn marks on the bedroom door. His phone rested on the coffee table. No missed calls. Time. 8:17 a.m. He sat up slowly. It felt real. Too real. He rushed to the bathroom mirror and lifted his hands. Blisters. Still there. Not imagined. Angry red welts across his palms. His stomach dropped. Dash dash dash. That afternoon, Daniel drove to the town records office. If the town wouldn't talk, paper would. Mrs. Klein, the elderly clerk, watched him with tired eyes. "You went to Maple Street," she said flatly. It wasn't a question. Daniel hesitated. "What happened in classroom 3? Her expression changed. Not surprise. Fear. "You should transfer," she whispered. Like the others. She didn't answer directly. Instead, she slid a thin folder across the desk. "Don't take it out of the building." Inside were documents not included in the public archive. Handwritten statements. Firefighter interviews. One report caught his eye. Captain Harold Mears, incident log. "We reached classroom 3 last. Door wouldn't open. Jammed from inside. We could hear children screaming. We tried axes. Tried forcing hinges. The handle was too hot to touch." Daniel's throat tightened. The next line was scratched harder into the page. Someone was holding it shut from the inside. He looked up. Mrs. Klein shook her head slowly. There were 33 children in that class. Officially, 32 died. She nodded. Yes. Daniel leaned forward. Who was the 33rd? Silence filled the room. Finally, she spoke. Emily Harper, the survivor. Mrs. Klein's eyes watered. She wasn't in the classroom when the fire started. Daniel's pulse quickened. Where was she? In the hallway. Doing what? Mrs. Klein's lips trembled. She told investigators she heard a voice inside classroom 3. A man's voice. Telling the children to stay seated. Telling them help was coming. Daniel's blood ran cold. But there was no teacher assigned to that room that day, she continued. Substitute never showed. The classroom should have been empty. Then who locked the door? Daniel asked. Mrs. Klein looked at him as if he already knew the answer. Emily said the voice didn't sound like a teacher. Daniel's mind raced. What happened to her 2 days later? She vanished. No body. No. Anyone see her leave? Mrs. Klein hesitated. Officer Thomas reported seeing her standing at the playground at 4:49 in the morning. Alone. Daniel's heart nearly stopped. What happened to Officer Thomas? She held his gaze. He transferred. Where? Nowhere. Silence. Daniel closed the file slowly. The pattern was forming. Every officer assigned to Ashford eventually left. Or disappeared. All after visiting Maple Street. All after 4:49. That night, Daniel didn't wait in his apartment. At 4:40 a.m., he stood at the edge of the playground again. Fog already gathering. He wasn't running this time. He wasn't observing. He was ready. Emily, he called out. The swings jerked violently at 4:49. Children materialized again, burned, twitching, watching. The blue-eyed girl stepped forward from the slide. You came back, she said calmly. You survived the fire, Daniel said. She smiled faintly. I wasn't inside. Then who locked them in? The other children began whispering in frantic, broken fragments. He did. He promised. He watches. He wakes. Emily raised her hand. Silence fell instantly. Daniel felt it then. A presence. Behind him. Tall. Heavy. Breathing. Slow. He didn't turn around. He didn't want to. Emily's eyes shifted past him. You're late, she said softly. A deep voice answered from behind Daniel. I always am. The sound vibrated in his bones. Familiar. Too familiar. Daniel turned slowly. Standing at the edge of the fog was a tall silhouette. A man in a firefighter's coat. Helmet melted. Face hidden in shadow. But beneath the helmet, two faintly glowing embers where eyes should be. You promised to open the door, the figure said. Daniel's chest tightened. I've never been here before. The figure tilted its head. Not yet. The playground equipment began rattling violently. The ground split slightly beneath Daniel's feet. The fog swirled into shapes, forming walls again. Emily stepped closer to him. You're connected, she whispered urgently. How? The firefighter raised one charred hand. And suddenly, Daniel wasn't in the playground anymore. He was inside a burning classroom. Smoke thick, children screaming, heat blistering his skin. He looked down at his hands. They weren't burned. They were gloved, fireproof. He was wearing a firefighter's coat. The classroom door in front of him glowed red hot. On the other side, children pounding, crying, please. Daniel's heart pounded violently. No, he whispered. Behind him, another firefighter shouted, Reyes. We have to pull back. Reyes. His name. Daniel looked at the name patch on the coat. Reyes. The door handle rattled violently from the inside. He reached for it, and hesitated, because through the smoke, he heard a voice. Calm, deep, from inside the flames. Keep it closed. Daniel staggered back into the present. The playground returned. The burned firefighter stood inches from him now. You remember, the figure said. Daniel shook his head violently. That's not possible. You were there. No. Emily's voice cut through the chaos. You weren't him, she said urgently. The firefighter's embers flared brighter. He will be. The children began screaming again. The ground cracked wider. Beneath it, a burning classroom. Still on fire. Still trapped in time. Daniel stared down into the flames. He saw children inside. Not fading. Not ghosts. Burning. Over and over. Every morning. 4:49. The firefighter leaned close to Daniel's ear. You left us. Daniel's vision blurred. The heat intensified. His hands began blistering again. Faster this time. Skin cracking. Peeling. The name Reyes echoed in his head. The door. Classroom 3. The promise. Emily grabbed his wrist. Her touch was freezing. You have to choose, she said. Choose what? To open it. The firefighter roared in rage. The playground began collapsing inward. Fog turned black. Children shrieking. Daniel felt himself falling. Down. Into flame. Toward the burning classroom door. The handle inches from his hand. The voice inside whispering again. Keep it closed. Daniel screamed, and grabbed the handle. It burned through his skin instantly. But this time, he didn't let go. To be continued. The playground still played. Part 3. The door handle fused to Daniel's skin. He smelled it before he felt it, the sickening scent of burning flesh. But he didn't let go. The classroom around him roared with fire. Smoke devoured the ceiling. Paint blistered and peeled like skin. Children pounded from the other side of the door, their screams collapsing into desperate sobs. Behind him, a voice thundered. Keep it closed. Daniel squeezed harder. His vision flickered between two realities. The burning classroom. The playground split open beneath him. The firefighter standing behind him in the flames. The charred figure, at the edge of the fog. They were the same, and yet, not. Reyes. A distant firefighter shouted from somewhere in the smoke. We're losing the structure. Daniel's heart slammed in his chest. He wasn't a firefighter. He had never been one. But the memory felt lived in. Heavy, personal, like guilt that didn't belong to him, but had chosen him. The voice inside the classroom door changed. It wasn't whispering anymore. It was pleading. Please, it's hot. Please open it. Children's fingers forced through the crack at the bottom of the door. Small, burning, scraping against tile. Daniel pulled. The handle didn't move. The voice behind him stepped closer. You failed once, it growled. You will fail again. Daniel forced himself to turn his head. The firefighter stood clearer now. The helmet melted away, the shadow peeled back, the face underneath was his. Not exactly. Older, scorched, eyes filled with embers, a version of him twisted by flame and regret. I am what happens when you hesitate, the burned Daniel said calmly. The pounding on the door weakened. Crying turning softer, slower. No, not again. Daniel planted his boots, and shoved with everything he had. The handle cracked, the hinges screamed, the door burst open. Flame swallowed him whole. He expected pain. Instead, silence. Cold. He stood in classroom 3. Untouched by fire. Desks neatly aligned. Winter coats hanging on hooks. 33 desks. 33. The children sat in their seats. Perfectly still, unburned, watching him. At the front of the room stood Emily. Blue eyes steady. You opened it, she said softly. Daniel looked around. Why aren't you burning? Her expression didn't change. Because this is before. A clock on the wall ticked loudly. 4:48 a.m. This is the moment, she continued. The choice. Daniel turned toward the classroom door. It was closed, not locked, just shut. Who locked it? He asked quietly. The temperature dropped. The fluorescent lights flickered. Every child in the room slowly turned their heads. Not toward him, toward the teacher's desk. The desk chair creaked. It was empty, but the indentation in the cushion deepened. As if someone invisible had just sat down. A deep voice filled the room. Attendance. The children stiffened. Emily's jaw tightened. It liked rules, she whispered. Order. Obedience. The invisible presence rose from the desk. The classroom door clicked locked by itself. Daniel lunged for it. Too late. The clock ticked to 4:49. Smoke seeped from the air vents. Children began coughing. The invisible presence moved toward Daniel. Heavy footsteps. But no body. Only pressure in the air. You think opening a door fixes this? The voice asked. Daniel clenched his fists. No, he said, but locking it created it. The presence stopped. The children's coughing grew louder. The room temperature began rising. Emily grabbed Daniel's sleeve. This is where it binds, she said urgently. Every morning, same time, same fear. The invisible force rushed him. Daniel was thrown against the chalkboard violently. His breath knocked out. On the board, written in ash. Stay seated. Why them? Daniel choked out. They listened, the voice answered. The children were crying now. Real fear, real heat. The vents began dripping flame. Daniel forced himself upright. You feed on it, he said, realization cutting through panic. You're not a ghost. You're what was left. Silence. Then a low, amused rumble. Smart. The walls began blackening. Fire racing across tile. The classroom was transitioning again. Back to the burning loop. Emily stood firm. You can't fight it, she said to Daniel. You have to break the rule. What rule? Her eyes locked on his. It only exists because we obey. The invisible presence roared. Desks bolted to the floor. Windows sealed shut. The children clutched their desks in terror. Daniel shouted, get up. They didn't move. Get up, he screamed. The fire surged. The voice thundered. Stay seated. Emily stepped onto her desk. The flames hesitated. Daniel understood. It's control, he whispered. It survives if they follow it. The fire climbed higher. Children screamed. Daniel leapt onto a desk beside Emily. The invisible force slammed into him. But the flames flickered weaker for a second. Stand up, he yelled to the class. One child hesitated, then slowly stood. The fire nearest that child dimmed. The presence shrieked in fury. Another child stood, then another. The flames began breaking apart like static losing signal. The voice distorted. Sit down. The command echoed violently. Half the children collapsed back into their chairs instinctively. Fire roared back to life. Daniel felt the heat return. It's fear, he shouted. It feeds when you're afraid. Emily jumped down and grabbed a younger girl's hand. Don't listen, she said firmly. The girl stood. The flame near her died again. The invisible presence lunged at Emily. Daniel intercepted it. For a split second, he saw it clearly. Not a man, not a firefighter, a shape made of smoke and authority. Born from panic, strengthened by obedience. The moment the adults told children to stay put during the fire. The fear anchored, the rule trapped them, and it grew. Every morning at 4:49. It replayed, waiting for someone to disobey. Daniel roared and flipped a desk over. Wood splintered. The sound shattered the pattern. More children stood. More flames died. The presence screamed, you need me. No, Daniel said through gritted teeth. They needed help. The clock on the wall cracked. 4:49 froze. The fire faltered. The remaining seated children looked around in confusion. Emily reached for the classroom door. It wasn't hot anymore. She opened it. Fresh air flooded in. Bright. Blinding. The smoke creature howled as light poured through it. The children ran. Not burned. Not screaming. Just running. Past Daniel. Out the door. Free. The creature shrank rapidly, folding inward like collapsing ash. You'll wake again, it hissed weakly. Daniel stepped toward it. No, he said calmly. He grabbed the chalkboard eraser and wiped away the words. Stay seated. The presence dissolved. Gone. Daniel jolted awake on the playground mulch. Morning sun warming his face. No fog. No cracks in the ground. No burned children. Just silence. Peaceful. He sat up slowly. The playground equipment stood still. New paint gleamed on the swings. The rust was gone. The jungle gym beam. The carving was missing. Number 449. No name. Footsteps approached. Daniel looked up. Mrs. Klein stood at the edge of the park. Behind her, children, alive, laughing, parents watching. The town council voted last year to restore it, she said gently. First day reopening. Daniel's chest tightened. What about the fire? He asked carefully. Her brow furrowed. What fire? A chill ran down his spine. He scanned the area where Maple Grove once stood. A modern elementary school building now stood there. Bright, new, children walking inside. A banner read, "Welcome back." Emily stood near the slide. Unburned, solid, real. She smiled at him. You broke it, she said softly. Daniel exhaled slowly. Is it over? Her smile faded slightly. For them, she answered. For them, he repeated. A faint creak echoed behind him. Metal, rusty, old. Daniel turned. One swing at the far end of the playground moved gently. Back and forth. No wind. He looked back at Emily. But she was gone. A digital clock on the school sign flickered. 4:48 a.m. Then, 4:49. The swing jerked higher. And somewhere, very far away, a door slammed shut. To be concluded.